Well, it's been a huge week in politics with the announcement of an election in September and Craig Thompson's arrest, of course, yesterday. Today, we're welcoming back our original big guns of politics.
Well, joining us from Brisbane is Labor MP Kevin Rudd and in Sydney, Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey. I feel like blowing trumpets. Good morning to both of you. Nice to see you back.
Is that the real Joe? How much weight have you lost?
It is the real Joe. Is that the real Kevin?
Well, I've seen Joe. Joe's looking fit and terrific. I've got about 5 kilos to lose, Joe, so... You know,
yeah, I've got
you need
a bit
to work
to
on
go.
that in Canberra, mate.
All right, well, I'll let you two boys plan your next trip to Kokoda. Kevin, can I start with you?
Joe's mistake last time was not to allow me to drown in that river. You know that.
He's not commenting, he's just nodding.
Don't tempt me again. I'm not tempted.
Let's talk politics. Gents, Kevin Rudd, starting with you. Julia Gillard's decision to name the date early for the election before Craig Thompson's arrest. Of course, this is... bought her protection from a potentially fatal by-election. Is that just a coincidence?
Oh, look, I don't think that's the case, and I'd be highly surprised if anyone knew of the activities of the police and what they did with Craig Thompson yesterday. Look, the Prime Minister has named a date. That's her prerogative. She's the Prime Minister. That's what heads of government get to do around the country at a state level or a federal level. And look, I've always been a big backer of fixed 4-year terms, but that requires constitutional change. This provides us with some certainty as to when this date's going to be. And let's hope that come election time, we've got clear plans from Joe's party, clear plans from our party, and a clear statement of the record of both so people can make an intelligent decision.
Joe, Mr Thompson's arrest happened basically during Tony Abbott's speech to the National Press Club yesterday. It brought a big smile to his face. His arrest, are you sceptical of the timing at all, and would it have made any difference?
Well, look, Koshy, I just heard the interview with Chris McArdle, his lawyer. The suggestion somehow that there's been political interference in the entire process with Craig Thompson is complete bunkum. You know, I find that a real stretch. The police have been... This has been going on for 5 years. Now, the allegations have been aired in Parliament ad nauseum. They've been in the media ad nauseum. And quite frankly, what stunned us is Julia Gillard has continued all the way along to defend him, to ignore any suggestion that there was any impropriety. Now 150 charges have been laid by the police, not by government, by the police. So let's be fair dinkum about it. There's a serious issue. Our view is that Julia Gillard should walk away from his vote on the floor of the Parliament. We've gone away from it. We won't accept his vote on the floor of the Parliament. And let the courts decide whether he's innocent or guilty. And if he's innocent, great, his vote counts. If he's guilty, well, obviously it'll be a very significant issue.
All right, I want to ask you both about the election.
Let's have the presumption of innocence here. Let's just have the presumption of innocence. Whether it's a Liberal senator last year being charged and arrested or Craig Thompson, these are difficult and sensitive matters, but the law's pretty clear. Presumption of innocence, due process, and if someone's convicted of a criminal offence with a 1-year sentence, then of course they're debarred from the Parliament. But let's just take a deep breath and allow due process to occur.
Yeah, you're entitled to process. I'm not arguing against process, but I'll tell you something, that because Julia Gillard has constantly defended him when all of these allegations were being aired, the right thing to do would be to say, no, I'm not going to accept his tainted independent vote. He's not on our side, and therefore let the courts make the decision. He can focus entirely on defending himself before the court rather than going through this process.
Let's talk election campaign, bit of a Clayton's election campaign, but it certainly has begun. Tony Abbott at the press club yesterday, Joe, talked about axing the school kids bonus. Is that just the start of the axe wielding?
Well, it's nothing that we take any great pleasure in doing, let me tell you. But the bottom line is Labor is spending money it doesn't have. It's borrowing money to pay for the school kids bonus. The school kids bonus has nothing to do with education. It sends a cheque out to people whether they want it or not, and it's got nothing to do with education. It's not related to education. It's simply a bribe, and it's being paid for out of a mining tax that isn't raising a dollar. So the government is borrowing money from your children to give it to you, hoping that you'll vote for them at the next election. It's dumb politics, it's dumb economics. We do not support it, and we've got to get the country back on the rails, and this is the first step in doing it.
Kevin, is it a bribe?
Oh, look, I think the bottom line is this. Look, the premise of Joe's argument, I love you, Joe, but on this one you're wrong, is your assertion, continued assertion about Australia's level of net debt relative to any other country in the world. Let's nail this one on day one. We have the lowest net debt to the size of the Australian economy of all the major advanced economies in the world, and you know that, and that's the only real accepted measure of where we stand against any other economy in the world. The second point is we had a global financial crisis, the worst since the Great Depression. We acted, and the lesson of the 30s was when the private sector collapses, the public sector steps in and fills the gap, and as the private economy removes, then the government withdraws its effort. And finally, on this particular measure, I noticed in Tony Abbott's speech, number one pillar for the future was reducing financial pressure on Australian families. And his number one measure is to take out of their pocket $420 a year if you've got a primary school kid, $820 a year if you're a secondary school kid, $15,000 out of families if you've got a kid for the duration of their school education. Strikes me, Joe, is not helping families under pressure.
Now I know Kevin's back. Now I know Kevin.
I was thinking that both of you are back.
2 minutes.
Big guns back on.
Printed and authorised by Kevin Rudd.
Kevin Rudd, Joe Hockey, good to see both of you.
See you next Friday. See you then.
We might have to bring back the bell, do you think, that we used to have to ting, ting, ting? All right.